At 6, the former LMPD detective officer who fired the shot that killed Breonna Taylor, testifying in the federal retrial of his former colleague, Brett Hankison. It is our top story tonight at 6. Hello, everybody. I'm Doug Proffitt. Hankison is charged with violating the civil rights of Breonna Taylor and her neighbors the night police say he fired 10 random shots during the deadly police raid in 2020. Isaiah Kim Martinez and senior photojournalist Alyssa Newton are covering this trial. Isaiah, here on day one, what was that courtroom like, especially with Breonna Taylor's mother sitting right there?
Well, Doug, Tamika Palmer, of course, Breonna Taylor's mother, was emotional, especially when she saw former LMPD detective Myles Cosgrove take the stand. Of course, he has admitted, it's very well known, that he fired the shot that killed Breonna Taylor that night when he was returning fire after a fellow officer was hit by gunfire. I do want to mention, though, there was more family in that courtroom, specifically later on into the afternoon. We heard from Janiyah Palmer, who, of course, is Breonna Taylor's sister. They lived together at the time, but again, Myles Cosgrove was the focus for the majority of this afternoon. While this federal trial is about former LMPD detective Brett Hankison, seen here clean-shaven, walking into court, it was Myles Cosgrove's name first mentioned to a jury to kick off day one of testimony. Cosgrove taking the witness stand, testifying that before he and other officers served that search warrant in 2020, he inspected Taylor's sliding glass door and window from the outside. He says they were covered by plastic blinds that he wasn't able to see through at all. Prosecutors are trying to prove it wasn't possible for Hankison to isolate a target when he fired those shots. Cosgrove, who now works as a deputy with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, testified, quote, "It's common sense. If you can't see something, you shouldn't be shooting at it." Hankison's attorneys coming right back moments later, pointing to January 2021, when Cosgrove himself was fired by LMPD for firing 16 shots that night without identifying a target, one of his bullets killing Breonna Taylor. It appears to be an effort to discredit his testimony. In opening statements, federal prosecutors called Hankison's actions, quote, unfathomably dangerous, saying he guessed when he heard sounds of exchanged gunfire. But defense attorneys argue no one can tell Hankison what he saw and heard during the shooting. Hankison has said in the past he thought his fellow officers were being executed, and he was trying to protect them. His attorney's overarching message, quote, policy can't train for everything, and a policy violation is not always a criminal act. Meanwhile, I talked to one of Breonna Taylor's cousins, Kamal Wells, who noticed something different in that courtroom.
I feel like the jury right now is paying more attention, being more attentive to what's going on and what's being said, taking more notes than in the previous trials.
And Doug, actually the first witness to testify was Chelsea Napper. This was actually before Cosgrove. Napper, of course, was one of 3 people living in a neighboring apartment to Taylor. She was actually pregnant at the time, living with her boyfriend and her then 5-year-old son. The jury was shown some of those bullets that made their way into her home. She described the entire scene as sounding like a bomb went off and a war zone, Doug.
Well, Isaiah, this jury, the makeup of it in this trial really isn't much different from the last one year ago. And the judge opened this morning dealing with a question about one juror, a man. What was that all about?
Well, Doug, there were questions last week about a juror who told the judge that he was actually going on a guy's trip over the weekend with a former LMPD officer who was a friend of his. So there was concern whether they would talk about this case. Turns out the jury told attorneys and the judge today that he ended up not going on that trip. So there were no issues that they were seeing at this time. Doug.
All right, and they remain on the jury. Thank you very much, Isaiah. A little window into the jury selection there.